Today we're talking about the 2002 film Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance by director Park Chan-Wook, a director that I have grown to love within the past 6 months. I first watched Old Boy, as many people have, his most critically acclaimed, his most notable film, iconic. I remember my exposure to Old Boy before watching it was on like these random YouTube lists, maybe like a Cinefix list of like best fight scene, because you have that one fight scene where he's breaking out of that apartment and there's the long take of the very horizontal fighting and everything. And I didn't know much else about it, but because I knew it had that one fight scene, I thought it was very much like a martial arts movie, because it was on all these lists of like, oh, best fight scene of all time and things like that. And so I went expecting like, I don't know, maybe like similar to maybe a kung fu movie from China, something like that. Martial arts beats up a lot of people. But what I got was something so messed up, so unexpected, but like in a really, really good way. The way Park Chan-Wook's movies work, from the ones that I've seen, are the narratives are completely messed up. Nobody makes narratives like he does, in my opinion. Like, they're so filled with these characters who do despicable things, but we kind of understand where they're coming from. So many shots that linger, so many silent moments that have so much meaning. And yeah, Old Boy blew me away. The twist at the end, I did not expect that whatsoever. But I watched it and I just loved that genre of like super violent revenge thriller and just off the walls, darkly comedic kind of movie. So yeah, I watched Old Boy. And then the next movie of his that I saw was The Handmaiden, which was, again, insane. Definitely a different tone from Old Boy, more polished. I guess that's due to the subject matter as well. It was from, what year was that? 2016 or 2018? One of those 2 years. It won a BAFTA for Best Foreign Language Film, which is one of the most biggest accomplishments. I don't want to say accomplishments as a demeaning way, just like accolades that he's gotten for any of his films, like international regard. And yeah, Handmaiden was absolutely crazy. I remember before I saw it, I talked to one of my friends and he's so like, oh yeah, it's like super messed up. And then I'm looking at all the posters and the marketing and I'm like, oh, this is like, doesn't seem that bad. That one yellow poster is pretty lovely. But yeah, it's messed up. I'd say less just balls to the wall violent than Old Boy, but still, nonetheless, it was incredible. And so those are the two that I have seen. Some of his other films are Sympathy for Lady Vengeance, or Lady Vengeance, as some people say, Thirst, Joint Security Area, Stoker, and then coming out this year, probably released in some places. I know it was at Cannes, and I believe he won Best Director for it at Cannes 2022. Don't quote me on that. I'm pretty sure. I'm just thinking of that from memory. But his newest film, Decision to Leave, which I am super hyped for. Because I got into Park Chan-Wook like this year, I didn't have Decision to Leave on like one of my most anticipated movies of the year list, but now it definitely is going to be up there. Yeah, I just don't know what else to say. I'm very excited. It has the guy Park Hae-il, I believe. Yeah, he was in Memories of Murder. He was one of the suspects in Memories of Murder, and he's also in The Host as well. So a Bong Joon-ho regular. But yeah, Decision to Leave, super hype. Can't wait for it to come out later this year. I believe like the North American release is going to be in like, I think I looked it up, said October-ish. So later this year, but very, very excited. So yeah, some of his other movies, I've been meaning to see Joint Security Area. I've heard really good things about that. Very excited. I want to watch Thirst as well, because it has Song Kang-ho in it as well. Everybody's a fan of Song Kang-ho, but yeah, so I'm excited to watch a bunch of his other filmography. But we are here today to talk about Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance. And so I find that a bunch of like Asian films, I can't really find the budget numbers for them. So the box office for this one was 1.9 million worldwide, which is a decent amount. It's hard to compare it against the budget numbers, but definitely more non-domestic, as in North American domestic definitely more Asian markets. And so let's get started into the film. Last week I started doing just like having pictures of like key moments, so I think I'm going to keep on doing that. So right now, spoilers ahead for Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance. I did watch it, I think 5 days ago. I usually watch them like closer to the date of streaming, but I did watch it quite a while ago, about a week ago, but I refreshed myself today, and I let it sit for a while, and I really did like that, thinking about it more, because it definitely was one that stuck in my mind. So we start off with our protagonist. His name is Ryu. And this guy, actually, this actor, his name is, Shin Ha-kyun. He was in a movie that I did 2 weeks ago, Save the Green Planet, which I do want to reference a bit later because the tone of these movies, they're both violent, absurdly comic Korean movies, but in different ways. I'll get to that later. So we have Ryu, the main character, and so at the beginning, the very first 15 to 20 minutes, and it does linger on for the rest of the film, but I noticed it right at the beginning. So many of the scenes are just no dialogue. That does come into play a bit because he is deaf, but so many of the scenes just play out, him working at the factory, he goes home, and just like his everyday life at the very beginning. It doesn't need too much dialogue to get the point across. And I noticed that right near the beginning. There's a lot of long shots as well, which I really, really like. And it's just something that carried throughout the movie that was very noticeable and just makes you think about the craft of filmmaking. And it just works really, really well for this movie. And this was often, I take screenshots of some of the images that I remember most vividly in my mind. And this POV of I think this is the guy firing him, is just one that I remember. Because there's the first shot, the reverse shot of this, is the guy very close, and he's like putting out his hand. The POV of Ryu. And then you have this, which, the camera's there, and the guy's just like off to the side, putting his hand out like that. But just his blank stare at the hand of him getting fired. This deaf man, what else can go bad in his life right now? His sister's sick, needs a kidney transplant. And so the story goes, his sister is sick and needs a kidney transplant. And so all the money that he scrounged up, he's going to try to solve her problem for her. But I guess getting fired does not really help that because, it's like this money you have, you need to spend it smartly. And he does not. So the doctor tells him that, kidneys, they're hard to come by. It might be a couple weeks, maybe even a couple months before we get a kidney. Sometimes it's rare to get some. And so he takes matters into his own hands. And there's a funny scene. It's literally, he's in the bathroom and there's a lady and has like a chisel, and she's taking off like a sticker from the bathroom stall as he's just peeing in the urinal. And so she takes it off, and then right as she walks out, these two bigger guys come in, slap some more stickers on the wall, and he reads it, and it says organs for sale. It's the black market organ sales. Put them in bathrooms, apparently. And of course, he decides to do that. So he takes whatever money he has, I believe it was like a couple tens of thousands of dollars, and goes to this black market organ dealer in a very weird atmosphere. They're like at the top of this abandoned building, just on this giant open floor. And it's this woman and her two sons who are like just the black market organ dealers. And she's just chilling there. She doesn't say a word, really. They're kind of all just hanging out there as they're getting things sorted. And she's trying to inject herself with this needle. And without saying anything, he just walks over and he helps her out with it. And it's like, I don't know if that connects to the story, the themes in any way. It's just one of those things that I feel like some Park Chan-Wook and just Korean movies in general, they're just like, they're so natural, as in people do things that are unpredictable, but it just feels right. And I don't know how to explain it. I don't know how to put my finger on it, but alas, he does that. And then often also the transitions, he fades to black often, just to go from one scene to another. And I think the reason he does this is because a lot of the times you know what's going to play out after. They've set up the scene, they've given you enough context, and you know what's going to happen next. They don't need to show him getting his kidney removed and leaving him in the apartment floor. If we fade out, fade back in to cut to him laying on this apartment floor. Nobody else is on the floor anymore. All their belongings, their desk, and everything is gone. He has stitches on the side of his body where they took out his kidney. He's naked. And there, we understand what happened. And it's almost more impactful that we don't see the violence that happened within that period of time, which is interesting because the end of the film is very violent. And so maybe it's leading up to be his character has not seen that darker side of the world yet. He's a little blind to it still. And so we gloss past that, the violent surgery procedure, them betraying him and just leaving him there. And then at the end, he just has not much else to live for. So we actually see the crazy violent acts that go on later on in the movie. But alas, so yeah, he's out a kidney and his money and his clothes. And so yeah, things aren't looking great. And then the dark comedy comes into play when he goes back to the hospital and they say, hey, great news, we found a kidney. It's a miracle. So you just have to pay the money. And again, he's deaf and he doesn't have to say anything. He just gives them this look. And he's like, the other guy, he's like, you have the money, right? And so yeah, bam. This movie is just like a series of unfortunate events. But like, half the time the audience has to decide whether the unfortunate events are justified, as in if it's their fault themselves or if it's just the world being absolutely cruel. Because yes, him going to the black market organ dealer is cruel, but yeah, it's just ironically horrible that there was a kidney ready to be given to his sister. So yeah, they still want to find out a way to get this kidney. So his girlfriend, who is an anarchist person who wants to take down the government and all corporations and everything, at the beginning she's like printing off these flyers for her group, and she everywhere she goes she hands them out. It's like join the revolution and everything like that. And so she suggests that they go and kidnap his old boss, the old boss of the factory that he used to work for, because he's a rich man. The wealth inequality in this story is quite jarring. And so she's like, he doesn't need all the money. Let's kidnap him, take some money. You'll get some sweet, sweet revenge, and we'll get the kidney. So they were going to go capture him, and then they're on the street in a car, and they see... what's his name again? Let's see. His name is Dongjin Park, played by Song Kang-ho, legendary actor. And he's walking with his family on the street, and this man, an employee of his, stands in the middle of a street, takes off his shirt, takes out a knife, and starts to cut his stomach just with the knife in front of his family, in front of his kids. And they try to stop him, but he just swings the knife everywhere. Dongjin cuts his hand because he was trying to grab the knife from him. And it's such a weird vibe to the scene. Because like I said before, the kidney transplant, we didn't see any really violent acts being committed. But this one, it's just so matter of fact. In broad daylight, he's there. You see him from this wide shot right here. Take the knife, cut it across his chest multiple times. The wounds slowly start bleeding, and you see the lines where he cut himself. And yeah, it was just like very jarring in that moment. And so they decide, they see the young girl, and they're like, you know what, let's kidnap her and leave him a ransom note. And that's how we'll get the money. And again, we know that they're going to kidnap her. They've set that up. It fades to black, and then we come up, and they're hanging out with her at a park, and they bring her back to their apartment. We don't see any violent acts. Maybe it's like at the beginning of their movie, they don't deem any of their acts immoral yet. Later on, he very clearly does some immoral acts that he probably knows that in his mind, but in his mind right now, it's probably so twisted that he's like, yes, this is fine. We're doing this for a good cause. So it's kind of mirroring that to the audience, where it's like, it's not going to show these gruesome, violent acts of him kidnapping this kid. It's just going to be fade to they have the kid now. So they bring home the kid to his sick sister, and they just tell the sister we're babysitting her for somebody else, because if she knew what was going on, she would freak out. And they leave the kid alone, Yu-sun, with his sister, which is like, yeah, you're kind of stupid for doing that. It's like, yes, we get it. The kid needs to stay home. It's like just not crazy enough to not be like a super big plot hole. But it's just one of those things where it's like, in this movie, there's so many things that go wrong. It's one of them where, like, really, guys? You really left the kid home with the one person who might out you? And so as they're going to fulfill this ransom, they give him a ransom note. They give Dong-jin a ransom note. And they say, come to this place with this money. He does. He's going through the subway, going across town to this place. And when he gets there, he tells him to close his eyes. Ryu puts a plastic bag over his head, lets him suffer there for a bit, which was another great scene of him just like chilling there with the plastic bag over his head and everything. What do we got here? Oh, this is just them hanging out. Okay. So yeah, they get the ransom note. But as that's going on, the sister is hanging out with Yu-sun, and the sister gives her phone number and says, I get lonely often. Hey, if you want to come hang out, here's my phone number. Which is, it sets up what's happening. But then they come back. They got the ransom money, as you see in the suitcase right there. And in this one shot, it lasts for a long time. She's just chilling, watching TV. They have this small exchange where he flips the channel to baseball, she flips it back, climbs on top of him, they playfully wrestle. And then out of nowhere, like 2 minutes into the scene, she grabs this like note that she had in her dress, gives it to him, and he reads it, and it's a note from his sister. And it says, I know what you're doing, and I won't stand for it. And he goes to the bathroom, and she had killed herself. Well, I don't want to say nothing had gone wrong for them, but nothing had gone wrong yet in this current heist. Yes, he lost his kidney in that altercation with the black market organ dealers. But he thought everything was going good. He got the money from this guy. We'll give the daughter back safe and sound. We don't want to hurt her. But then, everything that they've been fighting for. His sister, she killed herself in the bathtub. And he goes in and it's a brutal scene. Yeah. And so after they do that, they want to go bury the sister at the place where they used to play. At this river, near this bridge. And so they all go there. They leave Yu-sun in the car as they go bury her under some rocks. And as they go to bury her, there's this man who is also at the river. And he sees the car. And then she runs out. And I think she's just going to come with Ryu. And just go to him instead of being left in the car. And he's across the river. So she goes into the river and drowns. So, his sister died, and now the girl that they didn't want to hurt in the first place, now drowned in the same river. And so, after this series of very unfortunate events, Dong-jin, the father, he goes to the river and tries to find out who did it. He goes to the river with all the police, and he says to the police, which was interesting, the police ask him, oh, who do you think would do this? And he's like, I don't know. I always thought I led an honest life. But he is a rich CEO. And so it's painting a picture early on in the movie. There's been this anti-corporation, anti-rich people sentiment with his girlfriend, having this movement that she wants to happen, and just with him getting fired, trying to get revenge on this rich CEO, saying, oh, yeah, he doesn't need the money anymore. And so we're initially seeing him as an antagonist. He says that he lives an honest life, which just isn't, it's an interesting statement because of the way everybody else sees him. But they try to think of somebody who might be against him, who would want to kill her, and he thinks of that guy from earlier on who cut himself. And so they go to his house, and his house is in this slum. And they open the door, and the whole family is just lying on the ground. We don't know if they're dead, if they're just starving, if they're passed out, but it's so brutal. And then they see one of the kids move, one of the sons, and they like take him to the hospital. I think it's like all of them are dead. That's supposed to be what's implied. They're just all dead because they're just so impoverished, which is crazy. And so, yeah, they take the son and put him in the hospital, and he's like, okay, this is like my good deed. You know, my daughter died, so I'm going to help this little kid as well. And so after that, he goes to the site where she died. And he goes there, he skips some rocks, and then he finds the body of his sister that was just killed. And along with that, the other man that was there, he's there again. And he interacts with him, and he is mentally challenged. But in a later scene, it's implied that he gets information, because he meets the guy, and then it fades again to black. And then later on, he talks to like one of the police, and he's like, he may be, I forget what the exact word, he may be mentally challenged, but he's not stupid. And so it's implied that he definitely did get a bunch of information from this guy. And so, along with this information, and he also found one of her flyers. I forget where she left it. She gave it to, was it the organ dealers? I think it might have been the organ. No. Who'd she give it to? She gave it to somebody, and he found one of those as well. So she knew what was kind of going on. So as he's kind of piecing this all together, as Dongjin's piecing everything together and trying to figure out who killed his daughter, Ryu is mad, quite mad. And so he goes alongside his girlfriend, what's her name, Young-mi. They go and hunt down the organ dealers again. So Young-mi goes in, and she's like, you know, maybe I'll sell my organs, maybe I need an organ, maybe not. Give them some flyers. And so they now they know the new location. So Ryu goes in with a baseball bat, and he's been getting his anger out in previous shots at the batting cage, just swinging his baseball bat. He goes in with a baseball bat, and he walks in. Oh, I don't have it. Oh, that's her being killed right there. So we have that, and then, oh man, I'm missing so many of these important moments. Like, oh, the cinematography is just so good. And his hair, I don't know, it just works so well. Okay, so, oh, not there yet. Okay, so, Ryu, he walks into the organ dealers, and one of them is in the middle of raping one of the donors with his mom just chilling there at the desk, probably just drugged up again. So Ryu goes in and just beats them all with a baseball bat. And yeah, at this point, like I said earlier, it's like he knows he's doing a bad thing now, but we're just going to show it because it's just how it is now. He knows it's a bad thing. And there's also just like this darkly comedic tone to it. There's this one action that just was very memorable. He had this screwdriver, stabs it in the guy's neck. And then the mom, who's probably just still drugged up, is like, no, don't take it out. No. And then he takes it out. Blood just goes everywhere. So yeah, crazy. He just beats them all to a pulp with his baseball bat. And I think the old lady also cuts him at some point with a knife, but he's okay. But he does get just a wound on his stomach and everything. And so, as that's going on, let's see here. As that's going on, we have, what's his face? Dongjin. He's piecing it all together, and so he goes and he finds his girlfriend, and he knows it's her because he went to their old apartment. There was an old picture that they took of his daughter in the apartment. He sees the wallpaper. It's the same. Confirmed. And then he goes and he ties up Ryu's girlfriend, Young-mi, and he starts torturing her with electricity. He like does this weird thing where he pulls on her earlobe. He like licks it. He licks her earlobe and then attaches the electric clamps and then starts zapping her. And she says that she's not going to say anything, blah, blah, blah. He throws on a blanket over her head so that he doesn't have to see her, and then just starts buzzing her again. And then in this shot, again, the weird, dark, comedic tone on the ground. It goes from her feet to almost all the way to him, she starts peeing. And he just takes another towel and he just puts it over the pee. He's like, oh, come on, I'm eating here. There's like a close-up shot of it, like it almost hitting his food. Oh, also, his food. She just got off the phone ordering food. And so as he's in the middle of torturing her, the food delivery man comes. And yeah, he gets killed as well. So everybody's kind of just in a killing frenzy. They don't have much to lose anymore. So she's killed. It doesn't really show it on screen. But yeah, she's killed. And then Dongjin escapes. And then Ryu, as he's coming back, he comes to the apartment. And there's police, paramedics everywhere. And he's like, whoa, what happened? He looks in the hall. Man, my place is down that hall. What do I do? And so he gets in an elevator going up. And as it stops, the police come into the elevator with her dead body covered up and puts it right beside him. And so as they're going down in the elevator, the tarp on top of her face falls down. He looks over and sees that it's her, and he grabs her hand and holds her hand for the duration of the elevator ride. This is like the latter half of Park Chan-Wook's movies are just like these weird, messed up scenarios with like the weirdest comedy. Him holding his dead girlfriend's hand while in an elevator. And so yeah, she's dead. She got wrecked. And so Ryu wants to hunt down Dongjin now. And so he goes and he tries to hunt him down, but he gets electrocuted by a door. He sees him in the window and he tries to open the door and he just gets zapped. And then Dongjin's like, oh, I got him. He fell right into my trap. And so he gets him and he brings him to the river. And this scene, again, was great. This scene, him just shivering in the water. His hair just looks so sick. Back to the place where so many of the deaths happened. And he says to him, he says, I know you're not a bad man. I know you're a smart guy. So you understand why I have to kill you. And of course, Ryu's deaf. He doesn't say anything. But it's just like minimal dialogue. And there's just so much that's going on. And also with the scenes like of him after, even during when he finds out that his girlfriend was killed. There's like minimal dialogue. He holds her hand in the elevator, hangs out in a car for a bit, contemplates what he has to do. You can tell exactly how he's feeling. He goes and gets zapped by the door trap. No dialogue again. So yeah, it comes to all this, and then we get a wide shot. Dongjin goes under the water. You see Ryu just panicking, and then there's this brutal close-up shot of his slit Achilles heel just gushing blood underwater. Both of his Achilles heels. And then there's this like weirdly beautiful shot, this head down shot of him dragging him across the river. And the river having this path of blood that is contaminating the river that is coming from his heel. And yeah, it's just a crazy ending, but it gets even crazier because then he like chops up the body. We don't see that happen. We just see like just bags and just like garbage bags of his body pieces. We know, again, we don't need to know. We don't need to see that it happens. And he's burying him. And right before he starts burying him, actually, he gets a call from the hospital. And he's like, "Oh, that kid that you brought to the hospital, he's waking up. Can you come and or no, I think they said that kid that you got from the hospital, he died. Sorry, not woke up. The kid died. If you want to come retrieve the body, come here and get the body." And he says, "Oh, you must have the wrong number." Which I'm trying to see what that relates to the movie and just how meaningful it is. Because it feels like one of those lines where it's like, damn, that hits hard. But I'm not sure why. It's just like, he kind of tried subtly to have this second redemption with another child and save them. And it didn't work out. And it's like, okay, really now, even that kid is dead as well. I have nothing to live for. I'm not going to deal with it. I'm just going to continue burying this body. And so as he's burying the body, a car drives up, and it is Youngmi's anarchist group that is actually real, that he did not believe that were real. Because as he was torturing her, she's like, "If you kill me, my group is going to come and kill you. I guarantee it." And yeah, they come, and they kill him. They come. They all simultaneously bring up their cigarettes at the same time. Very Wes Anderson-y, which is weird, because like, he's so stylistic, and he's just so brutal and gritty at the same time, Park Chan-Wook. And then in the end, he's sitting next to his car, all slashed up, and one of the guys takes one of those posters, sticks it on his chest, and stabs a knife in it. And it's just there on his chest, like it's pinned up against like a corkboard. And that's how it ends. And it's just... the ending is so crazy. Throughout the credits, it's just him whimpering. He's lost everything. Everyone in this movie just like lost everything. And it was insane. So, I don't know what shot I just want to focus on while I talk. But yeah, this is a good shot. So, very Park Chan-Wook from what I know of him. And it just makes me more excited to see the crazy narratives that he comes up with that I haven't seen. And yeah, I just want to focus on a few of the stylistic and just like story elements that are just like so well done, because I feel like some people who don't analyze movies as much, they'd say like the grittiness to it. Maybe they might see the fade to blacks as a bit cheap, but like I found them very impactful because of the things that didn't need to be said, the things that didn't need to be shown. And also just like the classic thing, show, don't tell. So many of the shots in this movie are long shots of people just doing things and reacting to what the scenario that they're in. Like I said at the beginning, Ryu, I think a deaf man is a perfect protagonist for this story because he's not going to be able to speak. And so he's just going to emote the entire time. And he did an incredible job. And yeah, just so many long shots of just brutal, like this shot here that we're looking at. He goes and he tries to swim in and tries to go make sure she's all right, but she's already dead. Yeah, there's just so many long, even like some of the violent scenes. It's like they do them so well, so viscerally. They're not using cuts to hide anything, really. He stabs the screwdrivers in the guy's neck, pulls it out, you see the blood gushing and everything. Yeah, it just works so well, and it's like the characters don't have to explain to people what they're going to do. I find that maybe that's kind of like a bit of a Hollywood-ism. You find so many characters have these scenes where they like sit down and they express their emotions to somebody else. It feels like a lot of filmmakers are telling the audience exactly what's happening. And this one, and just some other Korean movies, even like, yeah, Old Boy and things like that, it lets you piece it together. And I think that building characters in that more subtle way, rather than like Hollywood characters, I know that's a very big generalization, but bear with me. Rather than, yeah, Hollywood characters telling the audience, this is the kind of character I am, this is my motivation, this is who I am. This is kind of the flip where it's like, it's more ambiguous. They just emote and you get to put your inferences of what they're thinking into their heads. And that can make the characters even more detailed because they're not telling you explicitly what to think, which is really, really cool. I really like that. And so I also wanted to talk about the tone as a dark comedy because it is brutal, it is violent, and it is a sad story. Like everything that happens in here is quite sad if it was happening in real life. But I was talking about it 2 weeks ago when I talked about Save the Green Planet, which also stars this guy. I was saying that Save the Green Planet felt like a light, dark comedy. This is kind of just a term that I'm kind of rolling with. It was very... Save the Green Planet, it was more of an absurd concept. You have this guy who thinks that these rich people are aliens, so he's capturing them, torturing them, and then you have this whole thing of him being like, oh, these aliens, they react different to humans. They can withstand so much electricity, so we're just going to shock him at such a high value, and he's going to survive. We're going to put this cream on his foot, which, like, suppresses his mind control abilities. We're going to shave his head so that he can't communicate with the other aliens. And so everything in that movie, it was more, one, absurd, two, a bit slapstick. Even though, of course, kidnapping is it's a dark subject in general. But for that one, I felt more of the comedy elements felt more a little jovial. And just the general theme of the movie with like some of the music, some of the images, it was more comedic. no, so I don't want to say comedic. It was more lighthearted, light, dark comedy. Because again, yeah, it was very weird. And there still was some violence in there that was very, like, matter of fact. But this one, I felt like was more of a dark, dark comedy. Whereas it's not trying to be more well, I don't want to, okay, I need to, there's so many terms here that I could use incorrectly. It's not trying to be more jovial and more slapstick, but there are some dark comedy moments in here that are just, I don't know, just like when he goes to kill the organ dealers. Again, I referenced this a couple times. He stabs the screwdriver in there, and the mom is just there like, no, don't take out the screwdriver. It's gonna, and then he takes out the screwdriver and the blood just goes everywhere. I thought that was so funny. But again, that's darker comedy. It's like they're not telling the audience that this is more jovial. It's more tongue-in-cheek, and the subject matter and just the style, like it's not going to play any like funny sound effects, any funny music. It's going to remain dark and gritty, just like all the shots in this are. It's not like colorful. See, this is definitely like just still a very serious tone. I feel like most of the shots, they're quite natural and more like a lot of blues and greens in here. And so it's a more dark comedy. Again, like him holding the hand of his dead girlfriend in the elevator. Still very sad moment, but there's no like jovial, lighthearted implications to that. There's still like, you can take it both ways, as in, yes, it is very sad that his girlfriend's dead, and the fact that he's holding her hand is just completely absurd and hilarious for some reason. But yeah, so those are kind of my thoughts on like the tone and the genre, and I really, really dig both of like Save the Green Planet and this. They're different tonally, but I still dug them both a lot. And just these crazy, violent revenge Korean movies, it seems like, are just such a good genre, I guess. Things like I Saw the Devil. It's like the characters are also interesting. It's not just violence for violence sake. The characters have these interesting motivations. Like in this one especially, like getting the organ transplant, blah, 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 accidentally killing the daughter. There is so much emotional weight to what's actually happening in the story. It's not just violent for violence sake, which I feel like some people might just take it as that. Like, yeah, Old Boy is crazy, balls to the wall, very violent. And some people have problems with that. And I don't, personally. But so, yeah. But with I Saw the Devil, I think that falls into dark comedy as well, because you have the bad guy, who is the guy from Old Boy, actually. And you have him kind of like being this crazy, masochistic bad guy who just is like, oh, no matter what you do, no matter how much you hurt me, I'm going to be fine. I'm going to be good. I killed your girl. And he's just laughing because he's just like pure evil. And I think I was less fond of I Saw the Devil just because of like, it's like a cat and mouse game, but he like captures him like very near the beginning and then he releases him. And then it's like, you could have just saved a bunch of people if you just like, you know, put him in prison or something. But like, okay, we're not talking about I Saw the Devil. But alas, yeah, it's just a great genre of gritty, violent Korean movies. And yeah, Park Chan-Wook's the man for that. And I can't wait to see more of it. So I think that another thing with that like kind of genre of movies is like the people act so matter of fact. They act so natural but unnatural at the same time. It's kind of like when I talked about that scene of when he goes to get which one is it? This one. Like this scene, it's like, it's so weird. The vibe is like, why is he going to help her with this needle? What is this saying about his character? There's just so many weird things that the world, okay, what I'm trying to say is the world feels very detailed with these natural, okay, I'm using that as a weird dichotomy. Okay, just like in the real world, people do weird things. Everything is pretty like random. You're going to see very unique circumstances anywhere you go in the world. And it just feels like this world is populated with those things where it's like, it's very hard to write. And it's just have to give props to like the writing and the direction of placing those people in those places and making it feel that way. It's hard to put my finger on, but if you kind of understand what I'm going down, you might understand it. And yeah, I think lastly about the story in general is like there are no good guys in this movie. I think the title Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance, it's hard to discern who exactly is Mr. Vengeance. I think in this we might go with Dong Jin's character, because his daughter dying is very much a catalyst for everything. And you could argue that he is, before that happens, he's thrust into this world rather than making that world a living hell for himself. Whereas Ryu, he did actively go and try to get the organ from the black market organ dealers himself. So he's very active in ruining his own life, whereas Dong Jin isn't. But also, Ryu definitely is the protagonist, right? Ryu is the protagonist, and I guess you're just used to having the protagonist's name in the title of the movie. But Ryu, what would he be avenging? He would be avenging his sister. That would be his Mr. Vengeance. So yeah, they're all avenging in different things. And I think the sympathy part is like, we see the full story. And we see where both of them are coming from. And it's up to the audience to decide who we sympathize with more. And yes, of course, if this is real life, they're both insane. But seeing where they're both coming from, it gives the audience the choice of choosing who to sympathize with. And again, like I said before, with the so much of the show don't tell, of them speaking less and us inferring what's going on in their heads, it's kind of like this game of the audience to build these characters in their own minds and choose who to root for and everything. But I like the title. It's just something interesting to think about that. Yeah, I can't really point my finger on everything, but yeah, it's just a movie that just spirals out of control. Again, like you said, like a series of unfortunate events. That's also where the comedy comes from. Things just constantly goes wrong. He loses his money and his kidney, and then a day later, the doctor's like, oh, it's a miracle, we found a kidney. Usually people have to wait months for these. And so yeah, the vibe is just like the dark comedy works so well. And there's also like this subtle like class struggle, this class criticism in a way, because like I said before, we see Ryu initially as this, he's this poor citizen compared to Dong Jin, who's this executive. We've already set up that Ryu's old boss is kind of an antagonist in his life because he fired him. And you also have them going to the house of Dong Jin's old employee who cut himself in front of him, seeing the impoverished areas there. And it's like a bunch of Korean movies do have that criticism that I've seen. And it's hard to pinpoint what it's exactly trying to say in this one, but yeah, definitely present in this. And it's just, it's interesting because you have Young Mi's group, the anarchist group, who's trying to dismantle the entire system. And then she's kind of the catalyst of like kidnapping the kid and everything. It's like, is that really going to do any good? But alas, it's just people in bad circumstances doing bad things, killing people, going crazy. And it's awesome. It's great. I really did like it. As you saw during, or I guess you didn't see, blah, blah, blah. I did give it a 4 out of, I did give it a 4 out of 5. I liked it quite a bit. Again, it's just Letterboxd reviews. I say this every time. The review, the rating, doesn't matter. Talking about it is way more fun. And I'm loving Park Chan-Wook's movies. Can't wait to see more. And yeah, I think that's all I'm going to say about Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance. It was a good talk. And I'm going to choose what we're going to watch next week. And I have a couple options that I was thinking of. I was considering The Virgin Suicides, which I have never seen. I do like Sofia Coppola. I'm a fan of Lost in Translation, On the Rocks. So that is an option. I was also considering the movie The Graduate, which I have never seen. I was also considering Metropolis because it's a classic sci-fi that I have not seen as well. All right, I think I might do some of those in the future, but I think I am going to go with The Virgin Suicides. It is on my public library available Canopy, which is great. I've watched many of the movies on Canopy. But yeah, this is going to be the one for next week. Next week is, I believe, the 27th. Yep, June 27th. And we'll talk about The Virgin Suicides. Yeah, Sofia Coppola. I really, really like Lost in Translation. I really like On the Rocks. And I really like Somewhere as well. Those are the three that I have seen. So, yeah, excited for The Virgin Suicides next week. And should be interesting.